All right, hello and welcome back to yet another tutorial in Maya. Okay, check this out. Today, what we're going to be looking at is texturing and some basic texturing. Now, for the most part, when you start out texturing, you're going to want to have a example or sort of just attach a picture to a plane and sort of see what that looks like in your scene. Now, this is a very simple tutorial, but we're going to examine the bump map and how to get really great results from creating a bump map to sort of improve your textures. And in this case, you can see I have a brick wall. And this is basic brick wall. And then I have a polygon frame here. And then I just have a plane with my logo here, deep fried ectoplasm stuff. And down here I have a polygon plane that I've attached a picture to as well. So essentially these are just pictures that are attached to planes for the most part. I have a couple of lights in this scene and that's it. But what we're going to look at is sort of how to elevate our textures into something a little bit more interesting texturally. This is a brick wall, and a brick wall normally has some texture to it. If you were to run your hand over it, you might feel some texture in there. So let's take a look at how to get something a little bit better than just a normal flat picture. And I'm going to show you a quick render so you can see where we're going here. And we're going to start working with some bump maps. And it may be basic, but it's really important to the overall look of what you're trying to achieve and sort of how the viewer perceives your environments. So I'm going to show you right now a render of what this scene actually looks like. Now, you'll notice that there's a lot more detail in here, and we can see a lot more textural stuff going on those bricks. And by creating a simple bump map, that sort of solved the problem of adding some more texture, because Maya is a 3D program, and you know, textures normally have 3D in them. Of course, you can see texture, you perceive it more than you see it sometimes. So with this example, we're just going to take a basic brick wall and give it this texture. Now, I'm going to move this to the side a little bit, and you'll see a dramatic difference. Here's the rendered view with a bump map attached, and this is basically just the view without a bump map. And I think I can show this better if we jump into Photoshop here real quick. So yeah, that's what we're going to be working on, the bump map. I'm going to bring this to the side, and let's sort of minimize Maya here and go into Photoshop. And I think I can show you kind of better what's happening in Photoshop. Of course, Photoshop is a texture artist's friend. Photoshop is critical to everything that you're going to do in Maya and every other aspect of graphic arts creation. So learn your Photoshop well. Anyway, this is a basic exercise, and what I want to show you is here are the two different renders. This one is basically the one with no bump map attached, and you can see where we have kind of a flat overall kind of look. And then this one up here is our bump map. So now you can see we're attaching a nice bump map, gives it just a lot more clarity, a really good visual sort of thing. It's noticeable, and you should get used to using bump maps with your textures, because they'll really bring that Pixar look and that that DreamWorks look to life here. So, and texturing is an art. It's a beautiful art, because for all graphics, what you see in the textures sort of bring about the feel of the environment that you're working with. So it's really important, and it will increase your level and your look 150%, 200%, maybe even 300%. Okay, so I'm going to show you sort of how I set up these bump maps, and you're going to you don't need to follow along with me and create anything, but just be aware that you're going to be sort of finding your own textures and creating your own bump maps for those textures. So let's get started on that. I'm going to I'll just cancel out of these right here. I don't need to save those, and let's look at where I started with this brick wall. Here is the brick wall master. This is the picture that I was working with. It was just a high resolution texture that I downloaded from a texture site on the internet, a free texture site, and there's, you know, lots of wonderful people out there that provide textures and sort of just post stuff. So don't be afraid to look for, download, and save free textures, because that's always cool when somebody posts a good one. So anyway, as you can see here, this is just a normal red brick wall. We've got a little spout coming out here. And inside of the document here that I've created, you'll notice that there's a lot of different layers in here. And these are my various layers of bump maps. And I kind of did a whole bunch of different ones just to sort of get an idea of what's going to look best in the final, you know, in a final bump map for this surface. So that's what we're looking at there. I think it might be easiest if I just sort of show you all of the bump maps I created for this various piece. I'll just go ahead and open those with our normal. Let's go to preview. Where's our preview? There's preview. All right. So in the large scale of things, I basically was experimenting and creating a lot of different bump maps. And this, you can see, is kind of washed out looking. This one right here is a reversal, so that sort of shows you kind of what that one's about. I did one that looks like this. I did one that looks like this, and you get the idea. I'm basically just playing around with the tonal values of this, this bump map. So in the end, I found that this type of bump map worked the best with the brick wall. And you'll notice how it sort of looks kind of even, and there's not a lot of detail in the blacks, but you can see some detail there. And you know, this bump map seemed to look the best with what I was doing. So, you know, just by ruling certain ones out, like here's one with a really dark texture. And I'm going to show you the various ways of looking at that and how to set this up so that you can easily transfer a bump map to your image and make a great looking texture. So that's that. Okay, so you get the idea. What we're looking at here is basically just having our picture, our background, and then just making a lot of duplicates of that background and then changing those. Basically what we're doing is desaturating the image to make it a black and white, and then just outputting that as a normal JPEG. So that's cool. So we'll work with that for a second here, and let me see if I can, let's look at the scene again, and I'm going to show you exactly what's going on with the scene. But if you notice with this texture, I have it's a lot brighter over here on this side than it is on this side, which is sort of why this background, when I did this bump map right here, sort of picked up those qualities, but I reversed them. So I'm going to show you how that procedure works in a minute here too as well. So let's move this guy out of the way. We'll come back into to Maya. Oh, but first, you know, I really want you to go take a look at LesterBanks.com, because Lester has the most awesome posts all the time. He features my work. He's super yeah, every once in a while I get to see something of mine posted in a nice blog like this. So Lester is dedicated to finding CG material for your brain, and he has Maya tutorial links, After Effects tutorial links, the Green Soda TV, a lot of fun stuff. Lester trolls the internet night and day to find good things for your brain. So go check Lester out. All right. Now let's go back into Maya for a second here and see if we can get a look at our scene. This is sort of where I started, and it basically is, I'm on high quality rendering. I'm in Mental Ray, just at normal draft settings, although you may want to, you know, put yours up to production settings in Mental Ray. And that's basically a start. So let's scroll out here a little bit, and I'll show you what's going on with this scene. Basically, this is my NURBS plane, just a simple plane with a picture attached as on the color channel. Down here I have my polygon plane. I sort of messed with that a little bit, and made some, you can't really see them in here, but I sort of just used the soft modification tool and pushed this surface up and down a little bit. I don't like the way it just is so level with the wall right there, so it's good to kind of break that up and try and get a little bit of waviness to this pattern. Maybe it just makes it look a little bit more natural. And let's see. We have the frame here is just a basic you know, polygon sphere, and I extruded these faces and pushed them back a little bit, and then attached a attached a plane right there. Put a plane in there. So really it's a basic scene. There's nothing too special going on here. I have one spotlight there. I have a point light right over here, and I adjusted the values a little bit and made sure I had some linear fall off and whatnot. And then I also have a spotlight going on up here at the top. So, you know, basically it's as simple as you get. But what we're interested in here is this surface, this brick wall, and we really want to just give this brick wall a nice bump map so that we get something that looks like, you know, this for our final render. We want all these nice bumps in here. So let's go back and take a look at Photoshop and how to create that bump map for this image. So I'm going to go ahead and minimize Maya here for a second. Let's come back into our master red brick wall. Okay, there it is. So if you were just to start out with an image like this, find yourself a good texture. It doesn't have to be this red brick wall. It could be anything. And you know, click on your background, come up here. You could actually just right click on there and just do a duplicate layer. And this one will be our copy 6, and I'll say okay, I'm good with that. And you know, maybe just right click again, do another duplicate layer, and you know, make some duplicates. So there I have a couple of duplicates. Now in this case I'm going to name this one, let's name this one just so we can keep them straight. I'm going to name this one test 1 bump or something. You know, you'll have to really be careful about how you're, you know, sort of labeling these, so when we output them you'll know kind of how to attach them. Just keep them organized. That's the main thing. Okay, so test 1. Now I'm going to turn off all the other layers above it and just make sure we're seeing just this test 1. I might even want to turn off my background. And normally, to begin with, when you start to look at this surface to create a bump map, you'll want to come up and in this case we'll just do adjustments to that layer. So let's mess around with its desaturate that layer first, because we're really on a bump map only working with black and white values. So there it is. You can see it's lighter over here, it's a little bit darker over here, so that causes, you know, a little bit of an anomaly when you're doing a bump map. So it looks a little gray, and really what we're after is taking grayscale out of the bump map, and we really want just detail in our cracks. So the first thing I kind of do is maybe just do maybe a brightness contrast adjustment, and in this case I might want to bring this brightness up. Okay, and I might want to bring the contrast up, but you know, you be the judge. Everything is different, so I'm going to just sort of stay with that for a second, and I'm going to hit OK. Now, I want to get a little bit more black value in here, so you know, sometimes the best thing to do next after you've raised your brightness is maybe make an adjustment to your levels. And in this case, I may want to come over my levels and bring that down so it gets pretty bright right there. And yeah, let's sort of go with something like that for the moment. All bump maps are going to be different. So anyway, just so you're aware, I'm going to hit OK with that. And on this test, I kind of want to even this out. It seemed like the best thing for me on this bump map on the last test was to sort of even this out. So you know, you may want to just come over to your dodge tool over here in Photoshop, grab your dodge tool, and you know, in this case I'll dodge this area out a bunch, you know, so just sort of lighten that up and even this out a bit. All right, and I think I might even go another extreme and just keep just keep working that over there a bit. And there is no precise way to do these bump maps. They're real tricky in the sense that, you know, you just have to kind of make a whole bunch of different ones and then test them out and see which one works best for you. So, you know, in this case, I'm finding that making these pretty light works the best. So I'll just go ahead and sort of even that up a bit. And there it is. There is technically a bump map. So we can test that one out with our scene and see how it works. So you get the idea. It's basically just a matter of really coming in here and looking at what your values are and seeing that you want a little bit of darkness in your cracks. And you know, in this case, you can keep on working with it. You might want to come down and make an adjustment to say, like, oh, in this case, let's go back to our levels now, or maybe our brightness and contrast, and let's take our brightness up a bit more and maybe even increase our contrast. Okay, so there we go. So anyway, I'm just making a whole bunch of different tests over here of different kinds in order to get to one that works really well. So the beauty of that is now that I have this test one created, I can just basically come in here and do a file and a save as, and I'll do this as whatever this was, test one, whatever, bump. I'll go test one bump, test one bump. All right, and I'm just going to save that out to the desktop. But you know, really, you should be saving these images directly into your Maya images folder, because that's really important. Because once you start saving images out all over the place, they will get disconnected, and you won't like that very much. So anyway, I'm going to switch this up to a JPEG right here, and that's our test one bump JPEG. And I'll go ahead and hit save and bring it up to its maximum quality there, and I'm okay with that. All right, so I just made a bump map here, and as you can see, it just looks like a bump map. Now let's do something else. Let's do another test. I'm going to basically come down to this one right here, and I'm going to go to test 2. I'm going to label this layer test 2, test 2. All right, and I'm going to turn off that layer. We'll turn this test 2 on. Now in this case, let's come up here and do the same thing. Let's go to layer, or excuse me, image, and we'll do an adjustment, and we'll basically desaturate that image right there. Okay, now let's maybe at this point look at this image a little differently and say invert this so that the positive values switch with the negative values. So we'll go ahead and come up to image, and we'll do an adjustment and come down to invert. And now I'm going to invert that. Now you can see where I have an inversion of that that image, and it's a little bit well, we probably want to mess around with our values a little bit and bring it up a little bit more, a little lighter. So I may want to come to image and go to adjustments, brightness, contrast, and let's bring our brightness up a little bit, and maybe bring our contrast up a bit, and I'll hit OK. And in this case, I may want to come in and tone this side down a little bit, maybe not. I think for the moment we'll just leave this the way it is, inverted. And I'm going to go test 2 invert. I think I'll rename that test 2 inverted. All right, inverted. Oh, didn't take. Inverted. Okay, so now I have a couple of tests down here that we can check out and see what these are going to look like as a bump map inside of Maya. Okay, so this is the process that you're going to use with your images to create some various bump maps. And you'll sort of create a whole bunch of them and attach them and see which one works the best. So I'll leave that one alone for now, and we'll get out of Photoshop because Maya is a lot more fun than Photoshop. But really, creating bump maps in Photoshop is an essential skill that you should have. So I'll go ahead and I'm just going to close that, and I'll go ahead and hit save. We'll get back into Maya here. And where's our Maya? There we go. All right, back into home ground. So let's look at this scene. Let's attach that. Let's attach these bump maps that we just made to our brick wall. Okay. So the first thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your Hypershade is open, and go to your Hypershade. I think I'll have to just open mine because I had it closed. Come into your Hypershade. Once that gets open there, you can see I have a lot of different surface material tests that I have going on in here. And there we go. So now that you're in the Hypershade, let's do this. Let's create a quick texture. I think that my normal base is my base color, but for this exercise, let's just start from scratch and just create a quick Lambert by clicking on the Lambert there. And now we have a Lambert here. And what we want to do is assign that. We'll get our assignment window here and click on File and come over to your tabs, and we're going to assign that red brick wall. And that red brick wall, I believe, where did it go? Here's our red brick wall, but I'm not noticing the... it's just a Photoshop document. Okay, well, let's do this. I'm going to basically call up this material right here, my base color. Oh, I got to cancel out of that. All right, I'm going to choose my base color right here, and that's my basically just this. Let's see if we can get that on. We'll go to Graph, Clear Graph. Get to my base color, and I'm going to go to Graph, Input and Output Connections. So essentially, when you assign in a picture file to a Lambert, it just is basically, you know, on the color layer, and that's cool. So in this case, what I'll do is I'll just assign one of these bump maps to this file, to this brick wall, and we had test 1. So really, after you've attached your picture as the color there, you want to come over and we're going to create a 2D texture, and we just want to click on our 2D textures, go to File, and then there's our file node. Come over here into your tabs, and we're going to look for that test that I just did. It was a red brick wall, or what was it? I know it's on here somewhere. Okay, maybe it's not. It was a test. It said test 1 something. Oh, you know what we forgot to do? We forgot to save those. Well, no, we did. That was our test 1. All right, we forgot to save number 2. Okay, so here's my test 1 bump JPEG. I'm going to go ahead and just hit open, and that opens that image. And here it is. It's file number 30, and as you can see, it's a 2D texture placement. So let's take that file 30 and click on there, middle mouse button, and drag and drop it on top of that Lambert and go and attach it to the bump. All right, now we have a network of stuff, basically. There we go. So we have a file that we placed on top of our bump, and that now goes on top of our Lambert. So now it has the right bump map. So this is Lambert, I believe it's just under base colors. So let's see what this looks like now. I'm going to go ahead and click on my plane, and then right mouse click, come down to my Assign Existing Materials, and we want to just go to base color, or at least that's the way I set mine up, but you get the idea. All right, so I'm going to take a quick render on this. Let's get up here into a view that looks good, and let's do a quick render. And we'll see what the results of that bump map did. All right. Okay, so here it is in the viewport, which you really can't judge what things are going to look like in the viewport. So I did a render, and here is what the render looks like. So that's the new bump map that we made. And wow, that looks pretty good. You can see where there's nice shadow areas in the cracks and crevices here. There's sort of some nice textural detail going on down here. It looks like the the mortar in between the bricks is looking good. Sort of has it's more pronounced in here, so that's pretty cool. All right, so you can see we're just doing a quick simple bump map like that will give you a much better look right there. Much better look than just attaching a normal JPEG. So that's essentially the process of how you do this, and it'll give you a much better results. Now, I noticed something immediately I don't really like, and that's this asphalt texture down here. Mainly because it just has too straight of a line across here, and it needs to be a little bit smaller in grain. So that's something I would probably fix. And anyway, you can kind of get the idea of what's happening here now. A simple bump map will really help you get a good look to your textures. So all right, let's zoom out here and take another quick look. Pretty basic. Now you can there's a way to bake textures onto these surfaces once you finally find what you want. It's sort of a tutorial for another time because there's so many different ways of going about baking textures on, whether they're 2D or 3D. And at this moment, it's best just to sort of look at this as a concept. That this is a concept, and yes, you can bake these surfaces on for faster render times and whatnot. So anyway, that's another tutorial for another day. It's kind of a boring subject, but we may have to do it. So anyway, I hope that helps get you started on the road of creating some cool textures. Now remember that you can put lights in here and change the colors, and since this is red, you may want to have some other colors coming out of your spotlight or your point light to change up your scene. For this one, we basically just did a simple scene. I'm going to take the textures off for a sec, and there you go. Pretty basic. So doesn't look like much there, but when you turn your textures on, wow, yeah, that's cool. All right. Okay, so go forth, make yourself some great textures, and be a good person, and have fun every day, and read a book, preferably the owner's manual. All right, so great. Take care. I'd like to thank all my new subscribers. I go and I watch everything that you do when you subscribe, and I know who you are, so thanks for the nice comments as well. It's always great to have good comments. Makes it kind of worthwhile to do these tutorials. So anyway, hope everything's good for your brain, and we'll see you for the next one. Thanks for watching.